We are very low on storage, and when I mean low, it is at the point of 1/3 in some instances and 1/4 thereabout in another instance. And where I'm speaking of with respect to the Mona Reservoir, we're about 30% of stored capacity, and the full capacity is 809 imperial million gallons of water. With respect to the Hermitage Dam, we're just about 40% of stored capacity, which is approximately out of a capacity of 393 million gallons. You would understand that we are just about 150 thereabout million gallons of water. The current level of siltation of Mona, we estimate, is less than 15% or thereabout. The current level of siltation for Hermitage is approximately 30 or so percent. And might I just say this with respect to Hermitage? One of the things that we have to bear in mind with respect to the Hermitage Dam, over the years, I would say the records that I've reviewed, the area of the dam was much smaller than what it is now. And what you find over time is that there is some amount of expansion because of soil erosion that may have taken place on the extremities of the dam. So using Archimedes' principle, you have erosion, embankment comes down, the area actually gets widened. So while we look at the size in terms of, in terms of the original capacity, we estimate that removing that high level of siltation will in fact create some additional storage. However, the additional storage, as we have estimated, is no more than about 15 days additional at full output from the Constant Spring Treatment Plant. One of the problems that we have faced over the years as it relates to our infrastructure in general is that we need to have clear planning. Spatial planning is what I call it, in terms of where we develop, where we don't. In addition to that, there must be a concerted infrastructure, long-term infrastructure plan that takes into consideration water supply as it would be as how we plan roads and so forth. Water, as we determine it, is a critical ingredient for national development. So therefore, without a corresponding increase in investment in our water supply infrastructure to add new sources and to ensure that our internal efficiencies as it relates to reducing our losses, NRW, is in place, then we will forever have situation as we are now currently experiencing. However, where we have most of the water sources and the available supply is on the eastern to northern side of the island. And one of the things that we have to look at seriously is to develop what I consider mega projects that will allow for the movement of water from where it is and the population is less to where it is required, where the population is much larger and concentrated. And for that, one of the things that the NWC is currently looking at is how it develops its overall investment plans to take into consideration developing a water supply infrastructure that will be resilient to situations like these, both dry times and wet times, because we have the two extremes when depending on the season. We have looked at looking at the RECORD system in the past, and we're still exploring that as a possibility of improving the supply to the Portmore, Spanish Town, and even as far as Old Harbour water supply. That is still in the discussion phase. There have been some proposals, and we are currently reviewing those. But again, those are long-term intervention, which will take 3 to 5 years to execute and implement. In respect to water supply to farmers, our farmers rely heavily on the NIC to provide those that water supply. So the NWC would not necessarily get involved or don't get involved in that aspect of water demand. What we focus on is the domestic water supply. What we are looking at, and these are some cursory discussion, is how we can do water exchange. For example, within the southern St. Catherine area, we have the Soapberry water treatment plant. We want to look and see how we can use that water resource in terms of the effluent from that wastewater treatment plant to supplement for surface water, which NIC now distribute to farmers. We want to look and see if we can develop a water supply system even on the Black River or Magati rivers to see how those water supply can now be used for irrigation in the St. Elizabeth area, and in turn replacing the wells for domestic use, which is now used for irrigation. Although these are really long-term projects, because while we discuss them, there are certain level of infrastructure that need to be put in place before those can become a reality. Leaks is a perennial problem for the NWC, and I make no bones about it on the basis of it as the leaks are generated based on a number of factors. Once you have intermittent supplies, once you have variation in your water pressure within a network, and also the age of the infrastructure. Age of the infrastructure, we have discussed that over and over in terms of not able to renew your pipe network. That's a problem. One of the things that we have done is at least try to get our leaks fixed within 24 hours. We're not necessarily saying we're meeting that target in every single parish, but that's our target. One of the other aspects that has to be considered with respect to leak and how it is managed, once we're able to effectively control our pressures within our network or within the various networks, then our leak frequency, or the frequency at which pipes leaks would be reduced. The NRW, which I spoke about for Kingston and St. Andrew, is aimed to do just that. Our educational campaign must be improved, because what you find during the rainy time, people use water plenty, and it is considered that it will be in abundance all around. So immediately at the end of a rainy season, our conservation message must be out there. Secondly, we have to look at how we can bring in some of those, and we mentioned it earlier, some of those abundant supplies. Thirdly, we have to definitely develop a reuse policy as it relates to considering wastewater as a valuable water resource. Without that consideration, we are going to constantly have that problem. And even with moving water from the north to the south, we must still consider wastewater reuse as a primary part of our water supply volume.